What's going on, America? This is Kevin from Kevin's Corner, where I try to make sense out of nonsense. And guess what, y'all? I discovered that the Boogie Man ain't real. Now, I know some of y'all wonder. Y'all saying, wait a minute. I grew up hearing about the Booger Man. I mean, my mom and them told me, be careful. You better go to sleep at night. You better make sure you brush your teeth. You better make sure you do your homework, say your prayers, all that stuff. Because if not, the boogeyman's gonna get you. See, you can only be controlled by the boogeyman when you're young, immature, foolish, or naive. See, when you allow people who unfortunately have the resources, intelligence, power, influence to shape your little brain to think that there's a boogeyman, they can control you. But once you find out that, wait a minute, Mom and them been telling me the boogeyman's under the bed all this time. I finally took a look under the bed. Crickets. Nothing. No booger man under there. So you've been manipulating me, Mom. You've been controlling me with these fear tactics and threats of the boogeyman getting me. Well, I discovered there's another boogeyman out there too. And it's called racism and oppression and all of this stuff that the Democrats, along with the liberal media, has been using just like your mom and them used to do when you were younger. And I'm about to expose it. Because see, not only I am able to see that this fake boogeyman that they're talking about isn't as big and bad as they say, but there's others out there too. There's others out there like myself. Now, let me qualify this. These folks are calling out the ridiculous approach towards these riots and these protests and they're calling out the tactics being used to perpetrate this from the media, from the Democratic Party, these narratives that's been pushed and floated around in the black community forever. Now, what we're not saying is there isn't any racism out there. That's not what we're saying, because see, that's not what the liberal media and the Democrats are trying to tell us anyway. They're not telling us that limited pockets of racism is the boogeyman. They're not telling us that every blue moon you might run across a little booger man that's left over, hanging around for good measure, something like that. But they're trying to tell us that the boogeyman is everywhere. When you open your door, the boogeyman's there. When you get in your car, the boogeyman's there. You're riding to work, racism, sitting on the passenger side with its seatbelt on, like, so what's the agenda today? It's all over the place. And so what's happening is it's causing us to fight a losing battle. When the boogeyman is invisible and everywhere, who do you fight? Now you have to understand, once the boogeyman was defeated, for the most part, the people who said, man, we were able to use the whole threat and fear tactics of the boogeyman to control the people, and now the people, they don't fear the boogeyman no more. We need to make up one. We need to manufacture a boogeyman to get them back under the control. And that's exactly what they've been doing when it comes down to all of this racism and riots and all of this stuff that they're pushing. So some people are smart enough to expose the boogeyman, like this lady who calls out Black Lives Matter. And I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoyed this. Let's listen.
The most common...
Okay, all right, little commercial popped up. We don't want that. We don't want that. Yeah, let's listen to this woman dismantle Black Lives Matter and their threats of the boogeyman and do it. Here we go. Let's hear it.
Black Lives Matter is a joke.
Oh.
You are the racist. The racist is you. It's because the white guy killed that. You think they're racist. The racist, the Black Lives Matter. Go to Chicago. They don't have schools. And they die every day. They don't matter. Because you can get attention from that.
Y'all hear that? She said Black Lives Matter is a joke. I mean, if Black Lives really matter, why don't you go to Chicago? You don't do that because you can't get attention to that. Now, there are some people out here with Black Lives Matter, like this little black young lady who's going to try to overpower her as she exposes that the boogeyman ain't real. She's going to try to do it not through intellectualism, not through a reasonable argument, but just telling her, we ain't trying to hear that. And see, that's the problem. That is the problem with many people. When you approach people on the left with some reasoning and some facts, instead of saying, well, I'd like to hear your position and I'll rebuttal, it's just, shut up. You don't know nothing. You ain't trying to hear that. Let's scream and yell and overpower them so nobody can pay attention to them, okay? That's your result. That's your plan. Your resolve to it. Let's listen.
Shut up! Shut up! Group of hypocrites. Go to Southeast DC, Northeast, tell them Black Lives Matter. If it matters, it should matter everywhere. You guys are hypocrites. Attention seekers. Attention seekers. Black lives should matter everywhere. It doesn't take a white cop to kill a black person to matter. So I'm here today because I heard about a demonstration on, the George Floyd event, situation, which I'm going to be honest about it. It's wrong that, anything like that should happen. Okay? It's very wrong.
Now, she made a very good point, y'all. See, she said it's wrong about what happened to George Floyd. In fact, we find that almost all Americans are saying that it's wrong. I mean, I would go so far as to say, please, find me even 5 examples of some people in America after watching that video that said, and I don't see what the problem is. Most likely you can't. Now, you might pay somebody to get on there and say something stupid like that to make it seem like the boogeyman is still there. But let's be real. There aren't too many people running around saying what happened to him is fine. So I think we're all on one accord concerning this situation. This is an example of a pocket where the boogeyman just pops up real quick. Everybody sees the boogeyman and says, there's the boogeyman, everybody. Let's attack the boogeyman, which are these cops who did this thing, period. But what the liberal media and the Democrats are trying to do is make us think that it's not just those cops doing something stupid, those cops did something racist, but instead, the boogeyman exists everywhere and also is inside of all of these white people in America, but they just don't know it. I'm sorry to tell you, white people, you got a little booger man in you, deep down on the inside, in the form of systemic racism. You got it. And trust me, when something like this comes up and you don't immediately fall to your knees and apologize for all of the years of oppression that minorities and black people have suffered, then now you're the boogeyman too. See, so that is the narrative they're trying to push. And so what's happening right here is she said, okay, we know that there's some boogeymen that pop up every blue moon, but to sit back and tell us that the boogeyman is everywhere, do you realize how would you live your life with any type of productivity, any type of peace and calm when you wake up in the morning and say, I'm scared to go outside because the boogeyman is there? What do you think the boogeyman was used for when we was a kid? It was to control you. Stay in your room, go to sleep, don't go nowhere, do what I say. And if not, the boogeyman is going to get you. See, that's the only reason that your mom and dad used the boogeyman on you. That's it. So when it comes down to what they're trying to use on black people, do you think it's just because they're worried about us? Do you think it's just because they're saying, you know what, you black people, we're down with the cause? We see that the boogeyman is only attacking you. Only attacking you. Us white people are exempt from the boogeyman. And we recognize that we have the boogeyman down on the inside. It's us and our booginess that sometimes releases it out on you in the form of police, in the form of companies and corporations and all of that stuff. Everybody that's white has boogeymen in them. And some people let their boogeyman out. For example, what happened to George Floyd. Now, we all recognize that's bad. But to the degree where they're saying, I don't have an adversary right now, so I must create one. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying that when he got killed and all the people that they expected to come out of the woodwork and say, leave these police officers alone, they were doing their job, and hey, this stuff happens, and it was a justified killing, nobody did that. See, when you getting ready for a fight and you come out like, yeah, man, what happened to him was messed up, man. This is more examples of police brutality. And the police say, you're right. It shouldn't have happened. These men need to be punished. What do you do then? You don't have a boogeyman anymore. You don't have an adversary. And the Democrats and the liberal media recognize that, oh, crap. if we allow America to realize that the majority of Americans really have more in common than they think they do concerning being able to recognize injustice and justice, being able to recognize police brutality versus good policing, if we let them recognize that, they'll realize this boogeyman that we've been telling them about ain't real. So what we have to do, since we don't have an adversary, since the people who was mad over this jumped up like, I need an adversary, and the adversary said, don't come at me like this, man. I agree with you. I'm down with you. So now what do? Let's create one. So in a regular moment of reasoning, logicalness, your just practical sense, you would say, if I saw this as wrong, and yet people been telling me that racism is running rampant in America and is systemic, then all of these people who are a part of that systemic racism should have rose up and said, leave these men alone. They were okay in what they did to George Floyd, but they didn't. They surprised you guys. I know y'all was waiting for the white nationalists to come out and say, that's right, man. Leave those boys alone. They're doing their jobs, man. I know y'all was waiting for that, and they didn't come out and do that. So what did the media do? Create a boogeyman. What are Black Lives Matter doing? Creating a boogeyman. What is Antifa doing? Creating a boogeyman. What have the Democrats been doing? Creating a boogeyman. They are the boogeyman, and then they want to play the role of the boogeyman slayer. They want to be John Wick. They want to be like, we come to kill the boogeyman as we created him. See, so I'm not falling for it. She's not falling for it. And many other black folks out there aren't falling for it. We done woke up and realized that the boogeyman ain't real. Now, as I close, I want y'all to know this. I am not telling you that racism isn't out there. But I'm telling you, people using racism as the number one threat to scare black people, to make them think that's why we can't get ahead. That is why we are being attacked and oppressed on a multiple level. Here's the real boogeyman when it comes down to black people. Poor education in schools and areas ran by Democrats. Here's another boogeyman that's real, that they're telling you that one don't exist. The amount of black men killed every day in the hood by other black people in cities ran by Democrats. You know another boogeyman? The Planned Parenthoods that are put in black neighborhoods that are responsible for millions of black babies not being born. That's a boogeyman. Yeah. Those things are real boogeymen. Yeah. A lack of public housing, all of that stuff. Those things are boogeymen. Not to mention the overwhelming liberal media and the Democrats using racism to distract black people from what they don't have, what they should ask for from the Democrats, what they should be able to recognize is not being done or given to them from the Democrats. That's a boogeyman. That's what the real boogeyman is. Shut up. Don't focus on how ratchet our party is, how much we use nothing but falsehoods, identity politics, scare tactics, and all of that stuff. Don't focus on that. Focus on the fact that we are pumping your heads, making you believe that you should be on a swivel constantly for racism. Now, in my closing, I just want you to think about this. In 2020, when I was a kid, we took a trip down south. That was during the time where in the South, there were still areas that were very open and direct about we're racist. It wasn't one of those, we got to question it. It was, you might go into a restaurant and still see a no black sign. Now, what that means is that when we entered certain states, my father and mother was like, now listen, down here, you got to be careful. You don't be looking at people funny. Don't be staring at them. You go in, we're going to eat real quick, get out of there. If you go to the bathroom, don't go in there by yourself. Take your brother with you or I'll go with. These were things that my mom and dad warned me of that made me concerned the whole time I was there. Anytime I left out of the black neighborhood or the house we were staying in with my cousins and them, I was concerned. I was worried. I'm like, man, I got to be conscious all day if I'm not in a safe environment with all black people. Now, you tell me, is that the first thought that most black people have right now? I mean, when stuff pop up and it happened like with George, people get mad, they get upset, then they turn into, protests and all this stuff. But prior to that, do you think that black people in America are walking around going, man, I got to be careful of how I look at white people, because at any moment, 4 or 5 of those white people, because they know they just got the privilege and the right, and they're going to be backed up by, the sheriff and all of the townsmen after they just snatch me, take me out, lynch me, shoot me, or something like that. They're all going to back that up. They're going to all get together and just say, that's right, this we do in our town. Or do we probably go about our business not thinking about that? Probably the second. We don't go around thinking that, man, I can't even look a white man in the eyes because they might just grab me and make me disappear. Fearing it. Most black people are walking around feeling that way, and it's for a reason. So when the boogeyman happens to show up in a certain circumstance, we should all unite, black, white, and otherwise, to recognize that's the boogeyman, and let's deal with it. But don't say, because I see the boogeyman in this case, I'm going to turn and say, the boogeyman is in all of y'all too. See, you deal with the boogeyman when it shows up. But don't say everybody is carrying around the boogeyman. And that's what's happening. And it's not coming from just people's brains. It's being downloaded from the real boogeyman. Now, you've been listening to Kevin and Kevin. I try to make some sense out of nonsense. It's getting harder and harder every day. Anyway, don't forget, check me out every Wednesday night live at Kevin's Corner on Facebook, YouTube, and my radio blog talk show. Don't forget to check out Extreme Tees, which when I decided to do this video, I ain't have no paraphernalia. I ain't wearing the gear. I'm sorry. But y'all seen me in it before. Make sure you check them out. The link is below. You will love their products. Click on something and put Kevin in a promo code. You get a 20% discount. All right. So those that have been supporting Kevin's Corner by watching my videos and hitting like and share, I appreciate it. If you want to donate to Kevin and Kevin's Corner, there's a link below this video to do that as well. All right. God bless. See you next time in Kevin's Corner.